What's up, Clemson fans? It's time to roar. This is episode 4 of Around the Bases, and we're going to be talking anything and everything that is Clemson baseball. I'm your host, Big Al, and as always, with me tonight is my co-host, Corey Welch. Corey, what's going on, man?
I just finished up some 8U baseball practice, Alan. Good news is I can still get 8-year-olds out. So humbled some kids today.
You don't have to be on the curve.
No. How are you today?
Oh, man, you got to do it. Well, Corey, I got to tell you, it was a rough weekend for the most part, baseball-wise anyways. I was always brought up, if you didn't have anything nice to say, that you shouldn't say anything at all. But look, we're both here. We might as well do a show, okay? Even though the Tigers struggled on the diamond this weekend, we're gonna do this thing if that's all right with you. So, look, we just get right into it. I mean, it was a tough weekend. They started out hot, Friday. The bats got going. It was nice to see the long ball approach work. For Monty Lee, it was kind of how he's built this team, how he teaches this team, and Clemson came out with 13-7 win. So very nice start to the weekend. I was like, man, I'm going to be able to come in here on Monday, talk to Corey, and we're going to have a good time with the show. Whether it's a series win, whether it's a sweep, whatever that may be, and talk about being humbled. Saturday and Sunday was flashback to games past and seasons past, and we just couldn't get the bats going. A rough outing as we lost game 2, 3-1, lost the series finale 3-2. So a tough way for the Tigers to go out this weekend.
Yeah, it was tough after such a solid start. So.
Yeah, definitely disappointing for sure. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to obviously, we just gave you the score recap for the weekend. We're going to get into kind of our positives, our negatives. Actually, we're going to start out with the negatives. Like we said, you always eat the veggies first. That's what we talk about, okay? You want to get those first out of the way. Then we're going to bring some positives to light, a couple of things we saw here and there that might be cause for optimism. And then we've got a couple little questions at the end. However, before we get into that, so when I decided that I was going to bring you on as kind of my co-host for this show, all right, there's a very specific reason. I don't want people out there thinking we're just two crazy people pretending we know what we're talking about. You actually have some credentials. My credentials is that I played, in Little League. And so now I think I know what I'm talking about. You actually have a lot more credentials than that. Why don't you fill our viewers in on exactly why they should listen to you?
Oh, that's a tough question, why they should listen to me. But, kind of with my background, I played at Anderson University, have done some coaching after I got done there. I coached at J.L. Mann High School for a few years. Tough to say, but we did lose in 2 state championships. So good little run there. I work with a website called Diamond Prospects, and kind of what we do is we cover the state from a prep baseball level. We run fall leagues here in the Upstate. This time of year, it's really cranked up this past weekend. I go around, watch games. Actually saw a Clemson commit Friday night pitch. Got to check in on that. So just around the game, one thing that's kind of cool is, seeing both sides of the baseball side, and then from the evaluation standpoint as well. I've worked with and coached several guys on the Clemson roster. And then from a travel standpoint, I work with a group called Canes Baseball. We have like a Canes South program here in South Carolina that I assist in running. And then I coach like our national level team, which is kids from all across the country. So during the summer, I'm out on the roads doing that. So it's a lot of baseball, 365 days a year almost. So, but yeah, so I'm just a baseball junkie pretty much.
Yeah. Really. We should have gone over the list of things you haven't done. That would have been a lot easier for sure. And I noticed you left out your Little League umpiring. We talked about that a little bit before the you've got it all. I mean, you've done everything. You know it from every angle, which is great. That really can give our viewers some insight as to where we're coming from with this. And they can choose, hey, this guy right here actually knows what he's talking about more than the host himself. So, they can kind of filter out the nonsense on my end, which is a good thing. We're going to jump in right to the negatives. Okay. We're going to look at the things that we saw. I'm going to let you start and tell me the things you saw, and I'll tell you if I have that on my list as well. So what are some things you saw didn't go Clemson's way, or maybe they can do better?
I mean, 2 things over the course of the weekend that I noticed. The first and foremost is the lack of production in the leadoff position. I noticed this past weekend they went, I believe it was 1 for 12. Couple of walks there. I mean, Coach Lee's he's just trying to find the hot hand. Just want to check and make sure. Yeah, I mean, every game was a different leadoff hitter, so it's not like they're just sitting on one guy. They're trying to get something going, and I feel like, especially with Kier and James Parker with 5 hits on the weekend, you get that guy on base, those runs are gonna really start to mount up, hopefully. The other thing that I saw, and we've seen this in the weekend outings, is just getting that long outing out of that Sunday starter. Those right out of the gate, for the most part, I mean, depth in college baseball can be an issue. I mean, typically runs are scored more on Sunday because you're at that third guy. But if you can now, no knock on Rattfield, he got out of a jam early on Sunday, but you kind of had to go to the well of that bullpen a little too soon, and it almost backfired at the end of the game. So, what are some things you saw?
Yeah, without a doubt, and those are 2 excellent points. I remember you actually mentioned the fact about the leadoff hitters and going 1 for 12. I think it was which is an amazing point. I didn't even have that on my list. As a matter of fact, I had pitching in general as on my list, but I didn't talk about the Sunday starter and the long run for the Sunday starter. What I have is situational hitting. This is something Clemson fans have been bugged with for quite some time with Clemson baseball. It doesn't seem to be a strength of the minor league program, as so many small ball aspects are. Situational hitting is not something they're strong at. They're not hitting behind runners. They're not advancing runners. The ABCs of baseball. Get them on, get them over, get them in. Clemson's not doing that very well right now, plain and simple. That's something I noticed right out of the gate. Clutch hitting, again, situational hitting and clutch hitting, I'm considering 2 different things. Clutch hitting, I'm talking about the big 2-out hit. Clemson had runners in scoring position, a few times over this weekend, just simply couldn't get the hit. Notre Dame's were able to get those hits, and you don't need many. I mean, Clemson, Notre Dame just got, a couple big hits here and there, and that was enough. That was enough to get them the series win on the road, which is a huge deal. Like I mentioned before, you were talking about the Sunday starter. I said I had an overall pitching command was tough this weekend. Even David Sharp did not have his best stuff. He was consistently out of the strike zone, got behind some hitters. He wasn't able to locate that off-speed pitch as well as he has been. And that's something we're going to have him. He's going to have to be consistent as your Friday night guy. He's got to be consistent. He's got to be able to hit his spots. And he's done great this year so far. And he didn't even have a bad game, by the way, on Friday night. He just didn't have his normal stuff. So hopefully he'll get, whatever mechanics were, figured out and get back to himself. But pitching command was tough. Saturday, Sunday even. I mean, we had a lot of guys getting walked. Look, we had 7 walks and 4 hit by pitches in the Sunday game alone, which is completely unacceptable. That has got to change, and it's got to change in a hurry. And we got out of a ton of jams, which shows you these guys have the stuff. They have the stuff when they can locate their ball. Okay, because they've got all kind of nasty breaking pitches. They got most of them are mid-90s, I believe. Getting up there, they're pitching fast. They've got good movement on their off-speed stuff, but they're just not able to have the command right now that they need to consistently get those batters out. They were getting behind hitters. Almost every count I saw was 1-0, 2-0. And it's funny because that was the opposite when we were hitting. I'd turn around for 2 seconds and I blink, we'd have 1 out, and it'd be an 0-2 count on offense. So we've got to do a little bit better there. The pitching as a whole, they got to find their command, especially on Sunday. We got to find somebody who can get in there and hit the strike zone, plain and simple. And we've got options. It's not that we don't have talent. We have talent. We've talked about it. We've talked about it several times this year. We just got to hone in that command a little bit, and I think we're going to be in good shape. The last thing I saw was the base running. That's plagued us for years. It's plagued us this year, and it struck again. Cooper Ingle, there was a pass ball or catcher, one that popped away from the catcher. He had all day to get to second, and he just froze. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. It looked kind of weird to me. And, of course, what happens? Dylan Brewer comes up, doubles. He only gets to third when he should have been scored. And that would have been the lead run at that time. I think it was 1-1 when that happened. And that can change the whole outcome of a game. I mean, it changes your whole strategy, pitching strategy. who you bring in. So that was kind of tough to see, especially when it's those kind of things that continue to plague this team. Now, I know I just threw out about 50 things at you, okay? But if you can remember any of them and you want to touch on any of them, go for it. Now's your chance.
Well, and I think kind of the way we sum this up is going back to the very beginning of the year when we talked about this team, with the number of freshmen and sophomores that are run out there. And you go back to COVID. And I think you ran into a team in Notre Dame that has a lot of grad transfers, like the guy that threw on Saturday. I want to make sure I get the name right. John Bertrand, Furman transfer. I knew that was going to be a tough matchup. Notre Dame went out during this offseason and got some, grad transfers, which actually leads to, more experienced players. And I think this weekend was kind of an example of that, where you had a lot of older guys kind of competing against those young guys. And not a knock on Notre Dame. I mean, they went to Wake Forest last week and took 2 out of 3, who's also a top 20 team. And if you look at their schedule, the only games they've played up to this point is conference. So it's a little bit crazy that that's the only time they're getting on the field and on the road.
Right.
And the good thing for them, and it's kind of, the thing you want to do in conference is hold serve at home. And obviously in this opening series of conference play, Clemson's dropped that. So you got to look at that as, at some point this year when they go out on the road, they need to flip the script there. But, it just in closing, not in closing, but in the closing of this topic, I really think it's like these guys have to, they're learning on the fly. Like you brought up the Cooper Ingle mistake, not trying to fault him. That is a basic mistake he's known his entire life. But It's easy for us to forget that this weekend was his first time in college action.
That's right. Yeah, and I was excited to see him too. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about him, and I have no doubt he's going to be a good player. It was just like you said. The point is, we're not certainly not here to bash players. We want them to succeed just as much as they do. I feel quite sure. And it's just the fact that that's something from the time you were little. This is not something new. It's not something that should have surprised him. But that's all right. He'll get it turned around. I have no doubt. We want to support the players. Like I said. I want Clemson to win so bad. I love Clemson baseball, and I just want them to do well, regardless.
That's why we're here, right?
That's why we're here. That's exactly why we're here, because we're passionate about baseball. Me, Clemson in particular. So it's, what we're pulling for them. I'm one of their biggest fans. I want them to do well. I want them to succeed, as I know they do. And one thing I want to do that we haven't been doing a ton of lately is we want to give shout outs to all of our viewers over here. So right now we got a lot of people active on the comments. I see John Hansen, my man from church, is in there with us. Four Paws, Wild Bill is with us as always. Jay Hallman in there as well. So keep getting your comments, and we'd love to interact with you. If we get a real good question, then if we have time, we'll try to sneak it in on the show. Give you a little shout out there too. So Bill, I got to put this one up from Bill. That's a good comment. And he's 100% right, actually. Yeah. Definitely easy to navigate. The people in those rural counties, they really struggle with these roundabouts. As good as the roundabouts are for traffic flow, man, I tell you, they hate them with a passion, no doubt about it.
That's great.
That is some good stuff right there, Wild Bill. And we got a couple of comments in here talking about softball. I got to tell you, when baseball is on the weekends, a lot of times, those games overlap and whatnot. It's all about the baseball for me. And once I take up, 3.5 hours of each day of the weekend watching or listening to baseball, I have a family. I've got to talk to my family. I've got to see my family. They like to see me most of the time on the weekends. They kind of care for me. And it was my girl's birthday this weekend too, by the way. They turned 6 on Sunday. My twin girls turned 6 on Sunday, so that was a fun day. I still snuck in most of the Sunday game, so that was fun. But softball. We talk a little bit of softball on the Morgan Thomas show. So I don't know if we'll touch on that tomorrow night or not. Morgan, he's crazy. If y'all have ever watched the show, y'all know him. We'll see how that goes. But we'll try to get Morgan to delve into softball a little bit more, because I got to tell you, my specialty. Well, specialty. We'll say specialty is baseball for sure. So we're going to get into the positives. All right, we talked about the negatives, and believe me, there's plenty of them. It's never good when you lose a home series. And look, Notre Dame's not a bad team. We talked about that. Notre Dame's a decent team, but Clemson should not be losing a series to Notre Dame at home. Plain and simple. It's really that easy for me. We've got to do the things, the little things better. And we gotta have those type of series because we got some real tough ones coming up for sure. Going to Chapel Hill this weekend. And again, like you said, you're gonna have to steal one on the road somehow. You're probably gonna have to steal a couple because you start getting into some of these teams that are some serious contenders. You're gonna have a tough hole to dig out of if you're not careful. So let's get on to the positives. Start out with some of your positives. Tell me what you got over the weekend. I know it might be a couple things here and there. Hopefully, some individual players or something like that. But we'll get into it.
Yeah, kind of the obvious is Caden Grise. We talked about him from day one, and he won. I don't remember what publication he won one of the Player of the Week awards. He hit balls from Doug Kingsmore to Westside High School, if you probably add them all together. I mean, those were some true blasts. So I'm glad that the fans got to see, the power that he can display. Another key thing that I thought was big, and I think it's going to be big moving forward, is getting Kier Meredith back in the lineup. He's such a dynamic player. I mean, to me, you watch him and he's your typical leadoff guy, but they have him in a run producing spot in the lineup, and he's getting the job done, getting the base hits. I think he had 5 hits this weekend. Yeah. And then, another positive was Matt Clark kind of getting back on track. We kind of touched on that last week. He had that rough go down in Columbia, but, followed up Olenchuk and did a nice job, gave him at bay. And, we were talking about the pitching too, and then I'll turn it over to you. On Saturday and Sunday, those were 2 tough losses. But at the end of the day, you held the opposition down to 3 runs. We talked about the walks, we talked about the hit batters, and you touched on this earlier, but you only gave up 3 runs. In a college baseball game where runs are scored, I mean, if you hold a team to 3 or under, and Coach Lee and his staff will probably tell you this too, is we should win that game.
Absolutely.
So they're like you talked about the pressure pitches and things like that. The play that Hughes made. That was in the 9th, I believe, when Engel just barely hung. I mean, the camera crew at Doug Kingsmore on those replays, I mean, it's unbelievable how good of a shots those guys are. I mean, can we please get that in the NFL? I mean, it's unbelievable. But,
dude, I absolutely cannot believe you just gave a shout out to the Clemson camera crew because that is last on my list. I was saving a surprise that nobody was going to see coming. And you just completely ruined everything. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure you're going to come back. That is unacceptable, man. So you're 100% right. The camera crew was all over it. There were 2 incredibly close plays. I'm talking by about an inch apiece, and the replay I think overturned both of them, maybe they got the call right on both of them. Let's put it that way. One went in Clemson's favor, one was against Clemson. But I mean, the cameras were dead on the money, perfect views. They had them slow down. A lot of times in baseball, especially college baseball, they'll slow them down and it's so blurry you can't tell what's going on. Man, they were all over it at Clemson this weekend. They did such a good job, as you mentioned. So yeah, that was going to be my last shout out, but I'll lead with that. Since you ruined everything there. Great call on Matt Clark, by the way. I should have given kudos to Matt Clark. We talked about him, and he picked a bad day to have a bad day against South Carolina. But he looked great. He looked great this past weekend. We got to have him in that role. Got to for the Tigers to be successful. He's got to pitch well, and he did that against Notre Dame. I think the defense is playing pretty good baseball. I don't think the defense has made too many mistakes. Obviously, it's college baseball. You're going to make some errors here and there. But I think they did a pretty good job. Even though, this is kind of the flip side of the coin. We got into a ton of jams because our walks were insane. We couldn't command the ball. We were putting people on base, freebies all over the place. But we were getting out of those jams. We only gave up 3 runs in each of those games. And honestly, it probably should have been 6, 7 runs, something like that. And these guys were getting out of it, which, again, speaks to their stuff. They've got it. They just got to hone that command a little bit, and hopefully they'll get there for sure. You mentioned Grise. You can't have the show without mentioning Grise. He's going, and it's awesome. We talked about it might take a little bit for him to get going. Well, he's going already, and it's great. The philosophy Monty Lee likes to go out there with a long ball approach. I'm cool with Caden Grise doing that. because he can do that. You know, they tell him they want him to hit 3 pop flies a game because one's going out. They're 100% right. That's what he's doing. Now, he's the only one on Clemson I want to see that approach with, but he's doing it, and he's doing it well. And I'm okay with them keeping that strategy with him for sure. Parker continues to hit well. Been very proud of how solid Parker's been, and he needs to continue to do that. Again, he's got some power too, and he can sneak one over the wall too as well. But again, he just needs to get good solid base hits, and which is what he's doing and what he's done all season so far. Also, I think Brewer's doing a pretty good job. I think Brewer hitting near the top of the lineup, doing a good job. He continues to get base hits and extra base hits. As I mentioned before, he should have had the go-ahead run had Engel not had the base running gap there first. So we've got some guys that are hitting the ball. It's stringing the hits together. Again, it's doing the situational things when they get on. Stop striking out. Stop swinging at pitches in the dirt. We've had a ton of strikeouts on pitches in the dirt, which is kind of tough to take when you're trying to move runners over. But they're guys that are hitting on here. Kier, like you said, he had 5 hits this weekend. Unfortunately, 4 of them came in the first game. He only got 1 over the next 2. So he's going to have to be more consistent. But again, he's just getting back in the swing of things. Kier's going to be just fine, I feel quite sure. But yeah, there's definitely some positive things to look at going on this weekend, coming out of this weekend. One thing that I do want to talk about is Pena. Okay, Rashesh Pena did not get in this weekend. I'm not really sure why. There were several times. I'm pretty sure I sent you a text message or 2. I know you were really busy this weekend, but I was sending a couple text messages wondering where he was. He's my go-to out of the pen. Bring in Pena. I say that all the time. Do you have any idea why he didn't pitch this weekend?
Honestly, I don't. And we kind of mentioned that on, especially in the Sunday game, whatever could be the issue there. If he is down for some time, that is a hole that definitely needs to be filled. Because I noticed they used Nick Hoffman. I think it's Nick. No, I know it's Nick Clayton. Nick Hoffman as well. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
Using those guys a little bit more, but in those past couple of weeks, Pena's really proven he's a guy. So if it's some type of precaution with the injury, like we hope him the best, and I know Al wants him to come back ASAP.
Absolutely, yeah. I was curious. Honestly, I had the thought. We didn't see him all weekend. I was thinking, maybe they're trying to groom him this week to be a starter on midweek, maybe potentially getting a starting role for the rest of the season. And then I saw the potential lineup at least come out today saying Grise was going to be the pitcher on Tuesday. So that kind of blows up that theory. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on there with Pena, but like I said, if it's injury related, like you mentioned, we hope for the best, and we need to get him back ASAP because he's been a great pitcher for Clemson so far. Now, going into USC Upstate, we're going to close the show with this. Corey's going to give us some thoughts on USC Upstate and kind of what he knows about this team. Guys, this is not just a cakewalk USC Upstate team, and Corey's about to tell you all about it. Go for it, man.
Yeah, and then before we go into that, what makes this year different than any other, there's no need to hit a panic button yet because, in previous years, I can't remember how many conference series they played, maybe 8 to 10. One thing to keep in mind is this year there's 12. So you're looking at 36 conference games. So, it's a long way to go. On the positive of that, you don't want to get yourself in a hole early, but, you drop in that series, you can get that back. And that's kind of leading into what we're going to talk about, kind of moving forward, with USC Upstate coming in on Tuesday, to the average fan, you see a USC Upstate team, but what most people don't realize is they're 9-0. They went down last week and 2 weeks ago swept College of Charleston, who, in this state is a good program. So, throwing Grise on Tuesday is going to be beneficial. Hopefully he can rebound from his last start. We did, Monty Lee touched on, in the fall and in the preseason that he was the best arm statistically. So there's a reason why they're running him out there, tomorrow against a good USC Upstate team.
Sure, without a doubt. And we're going to get there. I'm hoping for the best. I'll be able to listen to a little bit of that one. I hope. The midweeks are kind of tough for me at times, but look, we're gonna keep pulling this team through. Okay, I know it doesn't sound like it because we talk about the negative stuff and the stuff we don't like that we're seeing, but believe it or not, I'm an optimist when it comes to Clemson baseball because every series we go into, I don't care how bad we played before. I don't care that I've seen for 5 years that I don't agree with the philosophy. I think we're going to win every series, every single weekend. I don't care who it is. Doesn't matter if they're ranked number 1 or number 50. I think we're winning the series, and I want to continue that as we go along this year. I think the fact that we're not using my approach, we're not using the small ball approach and things like that is tough because we have lost 4 games by a total of 5 runs, and that's a tough thing to see because if you're playing the small ball approach, chances are you're going to push across enough runs to make those games interesting, whether you win it by 1 or whether you tie it and take it into extras or whatever. Every run counts, and I think that approach, I think the Tigers especially would benefit from that approach when we don't have enough power hitters. We don't have but one Caden Grise. That's all we got, So I just wish the approach was tailored more to our personnel. But like you said, there's a lot of young guys in the lineup, and maybe they develop, and maybe they're taking full swings. They start making contact, and we're scoring 13 every game. I'm cool with that too. As long as the Tigers are winning, I'm good with it. But look, we'll go back Monday. Next Monday, we're going to go again. We're going to hopefully have a series victory against the North Carolina Tar Heels to talk about. That would be really nice. Be nice to get back in the winning ways for sure. And as we look forward to the rest of the season, Luke, we want to thank everybody again for joining us tonight. We had some good comments over here. We want you to get in. We want you to keep being active on the chat line because the more you interact with us, the better the show is going to be. We like to hear everybody's thoughts and get everybody's opinion. But make sure that you join us next Monday night at 8:30. We're going to try to keep it to about 20 minutes as usual. But we'd love to see you there, and we'll see you again, as always, as we slide into home.